So let's talk about slides and bends. These are a couple of qualities that are very unique to guitar. You can do them on some other stringed instruments too, particularly slides. But so I have written here, you can see that I hand wrote out to slide from a 7 to an 8. So instead of a hammer-on or something like that, we're going to note that the slide is another way to execute a slur, where we're only playing one time, but we're plucking one time, but we're getting more than one note. So usually there is the slur marking, but also a slide, that straight line that connects the notes. To execute a slide very well, you do not want to squeeze with your thumb behind here. If you're just moving up one fret, you might think, well, that's easy, right? But a lot of slides go up a lot higher than that. You may be going up multiple frets. And so you really can't squeeze here. Instead, you want to almost pull the note down, pull the string down, and that way you can start where you need to and make a very nice smooth slide, moving your whole hand. But even if it's just one fret, I would encourage you to do it this correct way, where you're not squeezing too much. I think your slides will be more consistent. And of course, you can slide in either direction. Like I wrote, you can slide from 8 down, or you can slide up. So what if there's a slide marking, but there's actually no slur? Well, technically, you can slide without slurring. I can slide and hit the note again, right? Usually we're not going to parse that out quite so minutely, but it is true that sometimes you'll hear something where there is clearly a slide and they want to specify that slide, but also a separate pick. So usually when you see a slide, you'll see that slide line, but also a slur over the top. Lots of cool stuff you can do incorporating slides, hammer-ons, and pull-offs. Let's turn our attention over to a bend now. And this is another thing that a guitar can do that's just really cool. So a bend is usually written in tab form with some kind of little arrow pointing up, all right? So what we're gonna do, and I think I wrote it, I wrote one on the 7th fret with an arrow bending up. It doesn't really tell me which finger to use, of course. Pinky is a little tough to bend with. We do it sometimes, but it's hard. I personally, my favorite finger to bend with is actually my 3rd finger. It's not my strongest finger, but I usually use both of these, 1 and 2, behind it for support, and then I can bend the string. So what are we actually doing here? We're playing the note, and we are then pushing the string towards the center of the guitar is the best way to do it. That means that if I'm up here and I'm bending, I'm probably going to do it this way. But if I'm down here, I'm probably going to do it this way. And no matter which way I bend, whether towards the ceiling or towards the floor, it still tightens the string a little bit and makes the pitch go up like this. You can hear that very clearly, right? Now let me prove it to you. What if I go the other way? It does the same thing, doesn't it? I just kind of start to run out of guitar neck here. And that's why we tend to bend towards the middle of the guitar, the center, because it's just a little bit easier this way or this way. So I like to use, again, all 3 fingers together, and I'll bend. And you have to keep the note pushed down while you do it, or else it'll quit. Usually when we bend, whether we want to or not, we kind of have to get a little bit of the sound of going back where we started. But a lot of times we do bend and we are supposed to go back. So you kind of get that sound. Good bends know what note they're going to. So a lot of times after the bend arrow, there'll be a little symbol that will say half, and that means half step, which means 1 fret. A half step, well, maybe we'll cover this more in depth later, but a half step is another way of just communicating a 1 fret distance. So that means if I'm playing, say, the 7th fret on my 2nd string, and it says to bend up a half, I want to bend this note until it sounds like this note. Okay? I'm not just bending willy-nilly. Now, sometimes that's great. You know, if that's what you're supposed to do, cool. But usually when you slide, you're going for a particular note. And it's used melodically, something you can kind of hum or sing along to. So, and then if it says a 1, it means you're supposed to bend a whole step, maybe from this all the way up to, I probably can't do that on the acoustic here. I can almost get there, but not quite. But on the electric, you can definitely bend up a whole step, or the equivalent of 2 frets, pretty easily. Sometimes it doesn't specify, but you can listen to the song and maybe use your ear to decide how far the bend goes. But 9 times out of 10, you do want to have a particular note in mind when you're bending to make it sound right. Fantastic. So you will wear your fingers out just a little bit if you practice your bends, for sure. but it's such a cool thing to do. Now, I did hear a recording one time when I was studying bends where I heard somebody make the pitch bend down. And I thought, oh, they do that by, wait a second. Either way I do it, I'm tightening the string and it's making the note go higher. So how did they make the note go lower? I don't get it. And I remember I started thinking, did they tune? No. Was it a slide? No, it's a bend. And then, of course, the answer hit me. You may already know it. And I thought, like the answer to a riddle. You just think it's so obvious. What they did was they started with the note bent up, and then they played it, right? So if you ever hear a note bending down, there's the trick. Start with it bent up, and then you can bend it down. You can bend it down, right? So I hope that will get you doing some bends, and if you're playing something on the tab, and you see that bend arrow. There can be other ways, like they might write a B. I've seen that before for bend, but usually there's an arrow there bending up, and it'll most of the time will tell you how far to bend to, and it's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool guitar effect. So good luck with your bends and with your slides.